In this video, we are going to learn how to tab our CPT coding books. So the CPT book is covered in later videos and when we're through the course a little bit more, but I'd like to show you how to tab your book because it's very important to be able to get to sections in your CPT book very quickly. So we're going to start by opening our CPT book, our current procedural terminology, and we're really not going to cover the sections in this video, just primarily the tabbing of the CPT coding book. So if you flip it open, our first page, we see that, and I've already used my tabs, they're already tabbed on the side of the book, but we see that our CPT manual gives us pre-labeled tabs that we can then tab the sections of our CPT book. We'll go over the different cheat sheets, like this is a cheat sheet for modifiers and symbols, but we'll go through that when we cover the intro to CPT. This is, again, just tabbing of the books. So I used my pre-populated tabs to tab the different sections of my book, and I'll cover them right now so you can follow along with yours. So our first tab is our Evaluation and Management section, our E&M. So I just placed my tab right here. And our E&M section contains codes that determine how the provider gets paid for the services they render. How the provider gets paid for the services they perform, whether they're hospital inpatient or whether they're doing a consultation or just an office visit. The E&M section is where we would select those codes from, and we'll learn all about that later. In each of the sections of our CPT manual, we will have a mini table of contents before we get into the actual codes. And this is a great thing for fast reference when you're looking for a particular code. Our next section is Anesthesia, and you can see that this tab is blue. And so I just put a tab right here in the mini table of contents again, and the codes follow this. We have these notes pages throughout our CPT books. And so when you hear us refer to writing notes in your coding books to reference during the exam, this is an example of one of those pages that you could write notes on. And so now we're going to get into our surgery section. And our surgery section is full of organ systems. So the first tab we have is Surge for surgery. And I just tab it, even though it's really just the beginning of the different sections and the organ systems that correlate. After surgery, we have integumentary, and of course that is our skin. So this would be where you would grab a code for a mole removal or something like that. The next tab we have is Musco Skeletal, and again, this is just a mini table of contents. And they have lots of nice diagrams and pictures throughout our CPT book. And in future videos, we'll really get into those as far as how to maneuver around your book. So if you have a question come up on maybe some type of anatomy question, you might be able to reference one of your diagrams in your CPT book. So we'll cover the best way to maneuver those in future videos. So this is Musco Skeletal, and that's on page 99. Our next section in surgery is respiratory. So again, you can see that these green tabs correlate with the green along the side of your books. And these are the different organ systems in the surgery section. So after respiratory, we have digestive. And digestive is on page 261. I personally like to tab on the table of contents just in case I need to reference something quickly. But some people I've seen actually tab right when the code starts. So here, this would be the code range for the digestive system up here. And we'll learn all about that later on. Our next organ system would be urinary system. So just tabbed it right there. Then we have the male genital system. And following that, we have the female genital system. After that, nervous system. So here's the tab right here. And then we have our eye and ocular system, and it's abbreviated together. So I just tabbed it right at the beginning of this section. And so after this, we are going to get into our radiology section. And so that changes our color, that's red. And here's the beginning of our radiology section. Our radiology section can be kind of intimidating, but once we get through it, you'll really have a better understanding of it. And then we have our path and lab. And just this table right here, right after we tabbed our path and lab, this table we will rarely use. So I don't even, I would just skip right over it actually and not even worry about it, because it's for a more specialized type of coding. So it's good just to know what it is, but not necessarily. We won't be in it very often, in other words. Now we're going to get into our medicine section. And so our medicine section is kind of like a catch-all where everything else is. So I tabbed the front of it, but it actually has all these different parts to it. So again, I just tabbed on page 571, and we all should have the same books. So if we don't, the layout of the CPT book will remain the same. They just might be on different page numbers if you bought your books from somewhere else or had them already. So there's all kinds of stuff in our medicine section. We have our vaccinations, our immunizations, and we get to learn all about those. We have our psychiatric codes, our psychotherapy, our interactive complexity, psychiatry codes. Our next tab would be dialysis, and our dialysis, of course, is hemodialysis. And this is on page 587 if you're following along with the tabs. Our next section in medicine is ophthalmology, and those are our vision services. And you see they have all these nice little diagrams throughout the book, which really reference the anatomy of different things. So as we get into dissecting our book, we'll really learn how to utilize those diagrams to help us when we do take our certification exam. Our next section is cardio, for cardiovascular. And we have pulmonary. Pulmonary is on 629. Our next section is allergy. Allergy and clinical immunology. So this is for allergy testing, which has become quite popular. Infusions, so we have our hydration infusions, chemotherapy. This is on page 649. And then we have therapy, which is physical therapy, so that's different. So our next section is category 2, and as you can see, it's changed back to red. So our category 2 codes are for performance measurement codes, and they have a $0 value assigned to them. So they're really only used for reporting purposes, and we'll learn more about those as we go through our course. Category 3 codes, these are also referred to as T codes. These are, I like to remember them by T for test. So we're really testing to see if these codes are used enough that they can actually make it into our CPT book. And now we're going to get to our appendix sections. We have quite a few appendix in our CPT book. Appendix A, B, our tabs are combined. Appendix A is where we're going to find our modifiers. We also had that page at the very beginning, the back side of our cover page in the CPT book. That was like a cheat sheet for modifiers. This is where modifiers are really spelled out. So this is the complete definition of them. And we'll use our modifiers a lot throughout this course, and they'll definitely be on the test. So we will really try to get familiar with them. Our next tab would be Appendix C through F. And we'll just go over our appendix briefly, but Appendix C is just clinical examples. So what they're giving you in this section is really just examples of what an evaluation and management code would be. So a new patient, what a basic office visit would be. And it just gives you a short little sentence about what that could look like. Our next tab is Appendix G through J. I don't really use these appendix very much, but you'll just need to know what they are and where they are in case you do need to reference them. And we'll go over them in greater detail later. This video is really just on getting used to tabbing our books and what we need to do to tab them. So just Appendix G is a summary of CPT codes that include moderate sedation. So these codes, you couldn't bill moderate sedation in addition to these codes. Our next tab is Appendix K through O. Appendix K, product pending FDA approval. I mean, it's just good to know the parts of your book. You will need to know your books inside and out, but as far as using them in the coding world, not so much. Appendix L, like I said, we'll really cover the appendix at a later date, but this is vascular families. So this would be a good thing to reference if you needed to reference what vein fell in what family or what order. And our last tab is our index. So the index gives you a little introduction on the use of the CPT index, how you use it, and this is where you would look up a term to find the code. So whatever was done, a surgery or a visit, whatever it could be, this is where you would look it up to find the actual code. But we'll see as we get to using our books, we'll see that even though the index is the way that we are taught to code and it's the way that you should code, you'll become familiar enough with your books that you won't always have to use the index. You'll be able to just know what type of visit it is or what section you need to reference in your CPT manual. So I'm going to go ahead and just reference something quickly. These are our place of service codes. Again, we'll go through that later, but I did want to point something out. If you are new to coding and you have never seen a CPT book before, I'm trying to go slow so I don't get book sick, seasick. I would definitely read through the introduction. So if you've been coding for a while and you know these books pretty well, you don't necessarily need to read through the introduction. But if you're new to coding and you're just starting out and this is the first time you've really used a CPT book, I would definitely recommend reading through the introduction, how to use the CPT book, why it was created, the different, the formats, and we'll cover the format because the format stays the same throughout each section. It goes over modifiers, guidelines, add-on codes, the different symbols that are used in this book, although I will say the symbols are also all listed here at the bottom, so but it will cover the definitions of those symbols and go into the book in more detail. Also, there is a little section for medical terminology review. Also, there is a little section for medical terminology review. So again, we really need to cover as much extra medical terminology as we can throughout this course. We do offer medical terminology additional guidance throughout this course, but this is just a good place to know these common prefixes, numbers, surgical procedures, conditions. These common prefixes, suffixes, and roots are listed here. So the CPT manual also gives us a table of contents for the anatomical illustrations and procedural illustrations throughout this book, which I find very helpful. In fact, I would tab this section with one of my own personal tabs. So I think it's that important, because as you're referencing anatomy, maybe during your exam, and you need to know what body plane is described for one of your questions, you could go here and you can find it right here. And that might not always be the case, but it's a very good tool to know that you have. So we are going to go ahead and wrap up our video at this time. Make sure you watch our next video on tabbing the ICD-10 book. Thank you.